Following a tragic car accident in Greece, Beckett, an American tourist, finds himself at the center of a dangerous political conspiracy and on the run for his life. This thriller doesn't thrill much. It's a forgettable manhunt movie with a sluggish pulse. The movie is disappointingly undercooked, with an oddly slow pace for a man-on-the-run film. It tells the story with by-the-numbers narrative. It's all chase with no pace. John David Washington just isn't quite able to engage us as Beckett, an average tourist on vacation with his girlfriend April, when tragedy intervenes and he falls asleep at the wheel. It all gets very convoluted as he finds himself trying to extract himself from one ticklish development after another, with a third act that mistakes cynicism for paranoia. There isn't much plot in this thing, as Beckett spends most of the time being clueless and just trying to survive, and that includes in the midst of political demonstrations. The Beckett character is sparsely written, and the sometimes bland performance Washington delivers doesn't fill in many characterization gaps. It's a problem that affects the pacing too. When Washington is alone and stationary, wallowing in grief or stewing in anger, the movie drags, no matter how gorgeous the scenery around him remains. Without the required ambiguities to fit the protagonist's paranoia, this pedestrian manhunt never really sparks. Beckett doesn't have much to say about himself or his situation. Washington shifts between three principal settings of shattered grief, fearful panic, and grim determination, but fails to bring much personality to any of them. Considering the amount of ground covered in the plot, this is curiously undynamic film that struggles to inject urgency into the protagonist's life or death situation. That's also down to the sketchy outline of the political backdrop, with unrest stirred by the austerity measures gripping the economically beleaguered country and corruption at multiple levels. Alicia Vikander wasted in a brief supporting role. Vicky Krieps also disappointingly underutilized. None of the supporting characters has sufficient definition to be interesting, leaving the burden entirely on Washington's Beckett. The last half hour of the movie becomes a mess of conflicting political interests and convoluted plotting, with a villain whose both sides' ideological stance deflates the paranoid vibe rather than enhancing it. Worse, the film fails to capitalize on the intriguing early suggestion that Beckett's sense of self-preservation is not reactive so much as motivated by a morally murky side of his personality. The movie abandons this more complex possibility, opting instead to weave and then anticlimactically unravel a web around its titular protagonist. Overall, this movie doesn't try hard enough to connect with audiences, which usually relish a sophisticated political thriller, and falls back on the chase as its main selling point. It ends on a note of an anticlimactic flatness. We do not recommend this movie at all.